Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
Okay, hello there, my lads. I've tried and failed to record this a couple of times, and I think the problem is I can only record today. It's fairly late in the day, and my mind's not working too well. And I thought, right, fuck it, let's have a beer. So I've got this nice wheat beer here. Let's drink that, and we'll just try and get through it somehow. How about that? Anyway, cheers, my loves. When in doubt, reach for the beer, my loves. So, right, for the third time, here we go. Going to be reviewing this one today. Another End by Vincent King. Published in 1971, the same year as Candyman. The book he's probably most famous for, actually, Candyman. Okay, right, let's kick off with the cover. What do you think of the cover, my loves? I quite like it, to be honest. I think this is a depiction of what you'll understand as a probe in the story when I talk about it. But I like the combination of the yellow and red going on here. I think yellow is a kind of underused colour in book covers, really, I would say. Particularly this kind of piss yellow. I don't know why that is. I've read somewhere about yellow being used in books. I think it's seldom used. Who knows why, but I really like it. I like that image a lot. No idea who the artist was. Perhaps someone can tell me. But yeah, otherwise it's fairly good condition, the book. It's remained in stock, so it never sold in a shop, and was probably in storage for decades before I got my grubby mitts on it. I don't think anyone had read it prior to me reading it, but there we are. That's a wonderful thought, isn't it? That it was hiding somewhere for all those years, and then it came to me, little old me. But let's take a little sniff. Okay, well, the first note, of course, is wood. But after the wood, I'd say it was kind of like a dusty, slightly musty underbelly of a particularly playful moth. Yes, that's what it smells like, my loves. Anyway, ooh, fuck. Right, apologies. It's going to be completely shambolic today. But bear with me. So, I read this about 6 weeks ago, and I've pretty much forgotten everything about it. I've had to re-familiarise myself by reading a bit of a synopsis, but there we are, my loves. My brain is barely capable of remembering to breathe, let alone remember shit from 6 weeks ago, but there we are. The salient points are in my head and were quite easily retrieved by reading a synopsis, but there we go. So what's this book all about? Another End. So really, in a nutshell, it's about a man called Adamson, who's what's called as a probe rider. That's what he's known as. And he resides and lives within a ship, a great big ship that's called a probe. Excuse me, that was a bad idea drinking beer while I was talking, but there we are. And their mission, which spans millennia, by the way, is to try to catalogue all of the stars and all of the planets within those star systems for life, looking for signs of alien life, intelligence primarily. This mission has been going on, as I said, for millennia. And they have found diddly squat. Fuck all, basically. There's no life whatsoever. I think maybe that occasionally they find very basic, maybe microbial life. That doesn't interest them. They're looking for intelligence. But by and large, these planets are either, there's no atmosphere at all, you know, it's like a cold vacuum, or it's just a desert planet, but yeah, fuck all there. And so this happens, so Adamson is essentially immortal. Of course, he's spanning millennia doing this adventure. And this is achieved by a part of the probe has a dissolution reconstitution tank. So Adamson can be dissolved and remade any number of times. So to span the great distances between stars. He goes into the tank and melts into a primordial ooze. And then when it's time to come back, he's kind of remade again. I don't think it's a particularly unpleasant experience for Adamson, but that's how it goes, my loves. Now, as you can imagine, this is a fairly bleak way of living, and Adamson becomes suicidal, and that's putting it lightly. So this, what I'm talking about now, is really only amounts to the first 4 or 5 chapters. And for me, this is the very best part of the book, because it really encapsulates what it must be like to be that distant from humanity. By the end of the 4th chapter, Adamson and his probe, the probe is sentient, more or less. It's controlled by an AI that it's more or less sentient. They're on the very edge of the Milky Way. They've explored everything and found nothing. And the last world they discover is just as barren as all the rest. And they leave their marker there, which is a pyramid forged of solid silver and encased in diamond. And it's imprinted with information about humanity, what they've done and where they've been, what they've discovered, which is fuck all, as we've already stated. But that last moment where he's looking down across at the entire galaxy and some lonely speck of light, which is our star, and he's that far removed from humanity. At this point, hundreds of thousands of years have passed. For all he knows, humanity no longer exists, and he's there right on the edge of it. He's discovered nothing at all, and he's all alone. So completely desolate, depressing, extreme loneliness, and questioning what's the purpose of all of this. If even, I mean, they haven't discovered anything anyway, but even had they discovered something, perhaps there's no one left at home to tell them about it. And this marker that they leave behind, he even kind of ruminates upon the impermanence of that object that they've crafted on that planet. You know, it's encased in diamond, so I mean, you know, you would think it's going to last forever, but of course it won't. You know, eventually it will evaporate. It will, the atoms that make up that structure will, you know, dissolute. They will become nothing. So even the most permanent thing that humanity is capable of constructing will eventually go into nothing. So at the end of it, at the end of that passage, those first 4 or 5 chapters, we are left feeling absolutely desolate. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. But Adamson, he is immortal, of course, but he is just a man. And of course, this lengthy jaunt across the galaxy is not doing him any good whatsoever. And so on numerous occasions, he has tried to kill himself. Now, his favoured method for doing this is trying to fly into the heart of a star. And every time he tries to do that, the AI that controls the probe eventually wrestles control back from him and brings him back to safety. At this point, usually Adamson's dead from the effects of radiation, but he's easily remade again in this tank. Yes, think of this AI as perhaps Hal from A Space Odyssey. Hal was hell-bent on the mission going through as it was programmed to do, and by and large this probe is hell-bent on the same kind of thing. They've got a mission to do, and by Jove they're going to be doing it, whether Adamson wants to or not. But yeah, think of it as Hal but with slightly more emotion. So this probe does care about Adamson, but at the same time doesn't mind bringing him back thousands upon thousands of times to check out the latest world that's got fuck all on it. So that whole bit at the beginning is really interesting, and I thought, my God, what a brilliant way to start a book. Where the hell is it going to go from there? Well, it takes a number of kind of journeys into the hinterland of what the fuck is going on kind of territory. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So there's spoilers throughout here. I'm probably going to go through most of the book just because it's so bonkers and I think you need to know what's going on. The next thing they encounter is, lo and behold, on the very fringes of, well, they go to, what is it? There's clouds that exist, of clouds of hydrogen that exist on the outside of our galaxy. It's something megalomaniac, something like that. Clouds. I can't be bothered to look it up, but it's kind of a proto-galaxy that's on the edge of our galaxy. So as a last-ditch attempt, the probe flies out that way after another one of Adamson's botched attempts at suicide to check out that area. In the meantime, so Adamson's latest attempt at suicide was almost successful. So all that was left was a burnt husk of his body. I mean, he really nailed it this time and really severely damaged the probe itself. But the probe is a masterful piece of equipment and was able to quickly repair itself and then set about trying to repair Adamson. Now, it had to do this by largely making him up in a way. So it had a certain amount of data left about him within the tanks or within its memory, but it had to kind of play fast and loose. So it's kind of an idea of Adamson, perhaps. So the probe is kind of a female. I got the idea it's a female intelligence. It had to rebuild Adamson, but also fashion a kind of hallucination to try to repair him mentally, perhaps, to bring him away from suicidal thoughts. So that was another interesting idea. All of this in the first 4 or 5 chapters, absolutely incredible. Anyway, they're in this whatever you call it, cloud, and they discover an alien entity. This entity goes by the name of Protea. Now, this entity is kind of formless mass, but it's a shape-shifting thing. It can take on any form whatsoever. Occasionally a butterfly, sometimes a seething cloud with lightning within it, sometimes a humanoid, various different things that it employs throughout the adventure to aid our hero Adamson. But so the first contact is based on Protea's knowledge of humanity from the broadcasts, television, radio that have been emanating from the Earth since the beginning, really. But due to the speed of light, the Protea is only absorbed up to perhaps the 70s, perhaps. So the films about the Second World War, for example, she was dismayed to discover that the Protea is another female intelligence, by the way. Dismayed to discover that wasn't fiction, it was based on reality. So Protea goes into a prolonged period of dormancy. She doesn't want to interact with Adamson, who she considers to be a kind of barbarian, really. So at this point, the probe is being called back to Earth. There's a recall of all the probes. So there's actually, I forgot to say, there's fucking hundreds, if not thousands, of these probes that have been sent out. But they've never really, they might have seen each other near the beginning, but since then they've all been isolated. Anyway, everyone's being called back to Earth. Protea goes into dormant phase. Adamson slinks back to his tank and gets turned into mush. And the probe blazes a path back towards Earth. Fucking hell. Okay, my loves. Right, so apologies again. This is really bad today. I can't afford the time to do this any justice, and I've got another 5 books to review at some other point. So if I don't do it now, I just know it'll never be done. So let's do it, even if it is shambolic. So at this point, on their way to Earth, they stop by at a planet that has signs of life on it. Now, this planet appears to have been terraformed, and there's various buildings. There's a city there, but it appears to be empty. But Adamson wants to explore it. And what does Adamson discover? A load of beautiful young women. Now, at this point in the book, it starts going completely bonkers. That's putting it lightly. So, right, let's do a potted retelling of what happens here. So, Adamson discovers these women. They take him in. They absolutely love Adamson because there's no other men about. Shortly thereafter, an orgy ensues, and they are doing all manner of things to Adamson. I don't think that's actually chronicled fully in the book. It's not erotica here, my loves, but the idea is that dear old Adamson gets thoroughly pleasured. Now, the climax of the orgy, perhaps one of many climaxes, another man appears on a kind of stage within this orgy room, and this chap becomes Adamson's, I can't even say his name, Adamson's nemesis, and he's called Theed. Thead. I can't pronounce my THs, so it sounds like feed, but it's Theed. Feed? Ah, fuck it, it's Feed. Anyway, bonkers name, and he's a bonkers chap. Turns out all of these women, these naked, writhing women cavorting all over the place, are robots that have been created by Theed. Theed then attempts to destroy Adamson, who's now running through this empty city naked as a young buck can be. One can only hope his genitalia are still intact. But Theed then becomes hell-bent on not only killing Adamson, but he's learnt of Protea. I can't even remember why, but Theed then becomes hell-bent on capturing Protea, this alien, and becoming the famous probe rider who discovered intelligent life. That's his shtick. He's also a complete narcissist, a sadist, and a bit of a fucking bastard, all rolled into one. So from this point onwards, Theed is pursuing Adamson, the probe, and Protea across the galaxy to try and kill Adamson. Well, try and kill he's basically trying to kill everything in sight. Christ, this is going to be a long one. I don't even know why I'm explaining all this. I don't need to, obviously, but I've started now, so I may as well continue. Another thing they discover whilst being pursued by Theed is another planet populated by humans, descendants of the home world's humans that had previously been a technologically advanced society on this other planet, but there was some kind of calamity. There was a massive explosion, an atomic war perhaps. I think Theed might have been involved in that as well. He's a complete bastard. And so they've reverted to a more slightly feudal existence, but they're happy. Anyway, Theed turns up there as well and threatens to blow that up as well, so they keep going. The next thing they discover, I think it might have been before this, completely shambles, fucking absolute shambles this will be, but there we are. They discover a cluster of abandoned probes. Now this is when it got to this point, I thought, my God, yeah, this is more like it. This is the kind of thing I'm interested in. The more bonkers stuff, I'm not interested in. It put me off quite a bit, I must say. But this cluster of abandoned probes were... It was these probe riders that had got together to commit suicide together. They've all had enough. They've spent millennia just seeing nothingness, and they've decided to get together and kill themselves, basically. And so killing oneself with a sentient probe that wants to keep you alive is quite tricky. So each of them has devised different means by which to kill themselves. I can't remember any of them now, but I remember thinking they were quite clever at the time, because you're dealing with a probe that can do anything pretty much. Anything can be created out of thin air, more or less. And of course, they have the ultimate power to bring you back from the dead with these tanks. So a lot of them was destroying the tanks and then chopping their heads off or something like that. Anyway, it eventually culminates back on Earth. This is the final showdown between Theed and Adamson. And I can't really describe it because it's completely fucking bonkers. This gets really crazy. I have no idea actually what happens, really. A lot of what happened was just crazy. The Earth itself, though, is definitely the Earth that features in Candyman. So think of a world-spanning city, multi-layered, goes all the way down, many layers, but the whole thing's kind of crumbling. It's in disrepair. Humanity are reduced to kind of feeble automatons almost. I don't even know if there was any humans left here. They might have been robots, more feed fuckers, I don't know. But they venture down beneath the city and go on an adventure. Eventually they find this great big computer. And it's an intelligence that, a kind of a god really, that's been formed from a ring of probes that are kind of orbiting the Earth. Now, the only thing I won't spoil is the absolute ending. But all I'll say is, Adam? Protea. Could Protea be Eve? I don't know. But anyway, that's kind of where it goes at the end. I have spoilt it if you've watched this, but I'm sure this is going to be a difficult watch anyway. Because I'm not even drunk, I'm just slightly manic, because I'm just distressed at how bad I can be when I just try it in one go and it's just shit. There we go, my loves. Okay, so to sum this book up, it's a tale of two halves, my loves. Well, the first 4 or 5 chapters, really excellent. There's flashes of brilliance within the madness. But for me, the madness itself is massively distracting. I think the idea of it is that Adamson, in his immortality, has taken the mission very seriously, and he's really wanting to find intelligent life. He wants success. He wants to bring back the goods. At a certain point, he realizes that it's hopeless and he keeps trying to kill himself. But Theed is very different. In his immortality, he has fully embraced his insanity. Of course, Adamson becomes slightly crazy because of the madness of being isolated on the fringes of the galaxy. But Theed has taken it to another level. He's fully embraced not only his madness, but his narcissism, his desire to be the very last human alive. Even that's his main ambition. He's also he's kind of what do you call it? He's kind of He's jury-rigged. Is that a word? That was the first word that came to me, but it seemed wrong. But he's jury-rigged. That's not right, surely. Anyway, he's worked out a way of making the recombination tank things, not only to make himself immortal, but to clone himself endlessly. So there's millions of these bastards everywhere. So the ultimate form of narcissism, of course, is to fill the universe with yourself, I suppose. So that's his direction. Adamson, I mean, he's not exactly the savior or the hero of this story. He's kind of someone who's just muddled through in a way. He's the last human who doesn't really seem to know what he's doing, why he's alive in the first place. So he's us, I suppose. He's us. There you go. That's my review. Let's get the book down, motherfucker. Right, what are we going to give this one? So I can't remember what I gave the other ones now. I think I gave Candyman and Light a Last Candle. I think I gave them both 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5. Maybe Candyman 5 out of 5. I can't remember now. Anyway, this one I'm going to give 3 out of 5. And that's just off the strength of the opening passage. And I mean, the whole book, it was an audacious undertaking. Let's put it that way. It was a great big It was ambitious. Let's put it that way. It was ambitious. He didn't fully pull it off. I think it's the kind of the psychedelic mindfuck shit that kind of got in the way a bit. But in that respect, I mean, some of that came into Candyman, especially. And for me, it reminded me of the work of Philip K. Dick. But perhaps with King's writing or his use of this kind of imagery, it's not quite as deep. Perhaps it's more surface. I'm not sure how much meaning is buried beneath some of this madness. I mean, the naked robot orgy and a weapon that is a load of jam splashed everywhere. Who the hell knows what that's all about? There's other bonkers stuff as well, especially when you go underneath the city back on Earth. It gets pretty weird. I'm sure there's some meaning there that you could extract from it, but I wasn't capable, as you can probably imagine, my loves. But there we are. There's my review of Another End. I highly recommend Candyman. By the way, I would read Candyman, then light a last candle. You'll be on a high then. Then attempt Another End, and you'll appreciate it, but you'll be disappointed as well in equal measure. And then, my loves, you will tiptoe towards Time Snake and Super Clown, which I haven't done yet, but I'm approaching it at warp speed. I can see it approaching, and it looks magnificent. And we're going to be going there together at some point, my loves. I'm going to read it very soon, and I will do a better job at reviewing it than I have this. But unfortunately, time is against me. I don't have any time at the moment. I'm doing all manner of things, my loves. But anyway, I won't tell you about it. I've got secret plans afoot, my loves, but it's not to do with the channel. And in fact, it's not even worth bothering talking about, actually. Fuck me, I'm terrible at this. Anyway, thank you for watching, my loves. I'll be better next time, I'm sure. Cheerio.